The first thing that we do after you remove the carrier from the housing, this one has had the ring gear removed, but you don't have to take the ring gear off to be able to do this job. First thing that we do before we split the case halves is take a punch and make a mark on the case halves so that you know once you've taken it apart how it needs to go back together to match the case halves up. If you don't do that, it's going to be hard to get it back together the way that it needs to be. So once you've marked that, then you need to remove the case half bolts that hold it together. And once you remove those bolts, you're going to be able to separate the two case halves. So this is the non-ring gear side. And then you're going to have the internal gears and the clutches. These clutches are what produce your limited slip. This is how the limited slip will work. And after I get this taken apart, I'll show you how to put the new clutches in and to show you how those work. So you have your clutch pack with a clutch ring, and this is how the limited slip works. You have your side gear, spider gears with one of the cross halves, your other two spider gears with the other half of the cross, and then similar to the other side, you have your other side gear, clutch ring, and the clutch pack for the opposite side here. So let me get this laid out and then we will show you how to put the new clutches in. Alright, after we have the case split, now we need to rebuild the clutch packs on each side gear. I'm going to take the old clutch pack off, and then I'll show you how the new clutches go in on the side gear. So this specific kit came with a Dana Spicer instruction sheet, and it shows you the way that these need to go in succession on the side gear. If you look at the clutches, I've separated them on the table. We have two here that are not marked with the indication of thin. These two don't have the thin marking, and these four do have the thin marking, and that's important for the way that the clutches go back together. These clutches, before they're installed, need to be soaked with some type of limited slip additive before installation. We recommend the Spicer additive. You can use whatever you'd like, but they need to be soaked prior to putting them on the side gear. So once they've been soaked, you can soak them in like a Ziploc bag or a Tupperware or something that can be thrown away, but just be aware that that stuff is really stinky. Make sure you're wearing gloves. Don't get it on your clothes. Don't get it on anything you want to keep. It's going to have to get thrown away. It's really stinky. So, okay. So once we start with our side gear, we put our clutch ring on first. Then, according to the Spicer manual, you have a thick clutch first, and then a domed Belleville washer. And this is where the limited slip gets its friction from. If you can kind of see, this is domed a little bit here on this washer. It's convex on this side. And the dome side needs to go out towards the carrier case, not towards the gear. So that would go next, and you can see that the inside of this is splined to mate up with the splines on the side gear. And you can see that this clutch is tabbed for the inside of your carrier case. These 4 tabs on your clutch line up with the 4 tabs in here, and that's what keeps this clutch stationary in the carrier case. Now, as you're driving, because the Belleville washer is attached to the side gear through the splines, and the outside tabs are attached to the carrier case, these two are trying to fight each other. And as the side gear tries to spin inside that clutch, when it's all bolted together and sandwiched tight, there's a lot of friction, especially with the type of clutches that are included in this kit where they have a friction material. there's a lot of friction between the side gear and the clutch pack, and that's what gives you your limited slip. So once you start with those two, the next thing that you're going to need is a thin washer, and you can see that this, or the thin clutch, you can see that that's marked as thin. That would go next in succession. And then another domed Belleville washer, same way, the dome goes out towards the carrier case side. And then one more thin washer, or clutch. And that would be a clutch pack for one side gear, and the other side gear will be in the same orientation. If you look at this from a side view now, you can see the separation between those. That separation will go away when the two case halves are bolted together, and it sandwiches those tight. Okay, so we'll drop this into the carrier case. Make sure that everything's seated and that everything's lined up, and you can see we've already got a lot of friction between this side gear and the clutches without it even being bolted. Okay, so then the next piece we're going to need to do is the spider gear kit. So the cross of the spider gears separates into two pieces, and if you look at the cross cut section of this pin, you can see that it's angled cut on one end that will correspond with the angle cut in the carrier case. So when you put this together, you're going to want to put diff fluid in between the gears and the pin, and drop that down. Inside the case. So that those angled pieces match together, and that the side gear and the spider gear teeth line up. You do your next side gear, clutch ring, your thick washer or your thick clutch, the Belleville washer with the dome towards the case side, thin clutch, another Belleville washer, and a thin clutch. We're going to want to match up the markings that we put on our case halves. If you line the tabs up on these upper clutches with the tabs below, that will help you get these two carrier case halves together. And then line up the markings that we did. Slide this case half over top, and you can see that there's a little bit of a gap between these two case halves. That's what you want for right now until you get these bolts put back in and torqued down, and that is what's going to give you your spring pressure between the clutches and those Belleville washers. So you're going to install these bolts back in. It's best to put a little bit of lube on the threads when you put those together so that you get an accurate torque reading. I believe these are at 80 foot-pounds is what you need to torque these to. Once you get the bolts for the case halves tightened and torqued down, that's how you would rebuild the clutch packs for a Dana 44, Dana 60, Dana 70, and a Dana 80 Powr-Lok carrier case. If you have other questions, you're welcome to give us a call. This was Ammon with Ventures Truck Parts. We'd be happy to help you with any questions you have on installing these clutches.